Hey everyone, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. I've got Mr. Pranav Dalal coming on the call. He owns a company that he founded called Office Beacon. They grew from 5 employees to 5,500 employees. He did it with no outside funding, pure sweat equity, if you will, in the process. And we're going to have a masterclass on how you can grow your company and improve your business, your revenues, all kinds of things on this. Now, listen, when you talk about no money in, right, you look for cash, right? A lot of companies look for cash. There's two ways of doing that, right? Taking outside funding, right? The external funding, and then the internal funding, which is you generate it internally, right? And both of the, one creates cash stores, the other creates cash flow. If you're interested in improving your cash flow on the EBITDA multiple of your company, which we specialize in here, increasing your revenue predictably, decreasing the expenses, improving that EBITDA so your company valuation is higher, and you have more cash to work with on a regular basis, reach out to me at Doug at ceosalesstrategies.com. Let's go talk to Pranav right now. Get a pen and paper and take notes. You're going to love this episode. Hey, Pranav, welcome to the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. Thanks so much for being here. I'm very grateful you're here today.
Thank you. Well, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, I love your story. I'm going to ask you to tell your story. I know you started back, was it 2001, if I remember correctly? Could you let everybody know what the backstory is, and we'll set the frame for this call?
Well, yeah, the backstory is I was before I started the company, I was in the internet space here in LA. And in 2000, internet bubble burst. So all the companies around me were failing, and the company I was in folded as well. And so at that moment, I really had a decision to make of what I was going to do next. And I decided that I was going to go into something related to services, not go back into something immediately software related. 3 days before 9/11, September 8th, I decided that what I was going to do was start a remote staffing company, or BPO, as it's called traditionally. And because I read a research paper from Deloitte regarding the emerging presence of this type of industry in India, within a week, I got on a plane, uh, rented an office in India. I went to the town where my parents were from. I really didn't know anyone because I didn't grow up there. Um, uh, in all transparency, I don't even speak the language. I grew up in Canada and honestly was very disconnected from India. But something it had my calling. I immediately knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so hired 5 people, rented that office, and came back to LA a week later and started cold calling. And it was pretty daunting. Obviously, it was a very tragic time in the US history at that point. But for me, it was almost like there was no safety net. I had a mortgage payment, 2 car payments. My firstborn was on his way like 2 weeks later, to be honest, and so I really and I'd quit, the internet startup that by no choice of my own, and so really had the fortitude and the mental strength to just keep moving forward and making it happen. So that was the backstory of that, and really found myself being able to open doors and get sales very quickly. But I was working day and night because we were I was training people. I didn't have any staff here in the US. And the interesting part about India at the time is, they weren't really accustomed to working night shift. And so I had to pay people triple time
Oh,
to
wow.
work night shift. And it was brutal. This is pre iPhone. This is pre like a lot of technology that would have made business so much easier. So a lot of those stories were pretty interesting too. But that was sort of the genesis of how I initially started.
And let's fast forward to today. How many employees in the company?
Yeah, and these are full-time employees, over 5,500. in over 4 countries. So India, the Philippines, South Africa, and Mexico. And our model is not to hire freelancers or independent contractors. We have full-time employees in each country that go into our offices, and that's our model. And our customers basically contract us, and we manage the employees. We manage, they have team leaders, they have support, HR support, IT support. We provide all the security around the technology and data security. And so we provide a very mission critical type of service to our clients.
You guys do development too? Because I know people are going to ask.
Yeah, so we do definitely development, a lot of AI, that's certainly very much so emerging. And if I talk about our services, the easiest way to think about it and the way I've sort of explained it to people is every company has multiple departments, from customer service, marketing, shipping and logistics, finance. We can help every department. So we offer services that can touch any department in any company. So we have specialists, and we're set up as an organization that way, to be able to support any company and augment any of their activities with the specialists that we have. And that's why we have different countries, because we have different skill sets that are enabled from different locations around the world.
So thank you for sharing the backstory. I found it fascinating. And folks, I don't actually ask people to promote their services in the front end of the podcast. I just never do that, Pranav. I think it's super important that people kind of pay attention to this conversation because you started out with your back against the wall. And like you said, I think your exact words were no safety net. You had a child on the way. You unfortunately, or maybe now fortunately, were tossed out of an internet startup, right? Because when we're all going through that, it's all like, oh no, and then it's like, but the seed of opportunity opened up. You capitalized on that, had the fortitude and mental strength to do that. But I wanted to go back to my first question was how did you do it, right? I mean, that takes a lot to jump on a plane, go to another country that you have roots in.
Hmm.
That would be like me going to Italy.
Sure.
I can't speak Italian, right? It's like
Okay. Yeah.
I've never met my great grandparents, right? None of that.
Right.
And so you go to this country, you've got to pay triple wages in the country, although less than the
Yeah.
US market, but still it's triple wages. You're working all night long. And I like what you said, there was really not much of a choice for you in your life at that point. You were focused on this was going to work.
Yeah. Correct.
And you started cold calling. And I love that because people today are always saying, well, cold calling's dead. And I'm like, not if you know how to do it.
Right.
And you also came at a really rough time where the 9/11 kicked in and the world was topsy-turvy at that point. So let's talk the first year. How
Mhm.
did it just go straight up? Was it like, how what happened between startup to year one that got you kind of maybe it wasn't the foundation of what grew into what you have today?
Yeah, I year one, gosh. And by the way, that's I mean nearly 25 years ago. I mean, it's an
Yeah.
incredible journey. Year one was a blur because it was 24 hours a day. During the daytime, I'd be cold calling and just making connections. And again, it was a struggle because you didn't have the same types of resources. You didn't have directories and the types of you didn't have Zoom info. You didn't have all these places where you could get So you had to really be very inventive on how to get to the right person. You didn't even have the right technology. There was no iPhone. You had old type of phones back then. So back then, you were limited in how you could do things, but you basically joined associations, you cold called people. And luckily back then people would answer their phone. And within 15 seconds, I had to really figure out how I was going to capture their attention through a hook by saying something that would really ensure that they'd be interested in continuing that conversation. So I became really good at that. And I remember just having a call, cycling it through my mind, writing down what went well, what didn't go well. It's almost like I'm a big NFL football fan, and when a quarterback makes a bad play on the field, they go to the bench and you see them with an iPad or something and they're analyzing what they just did, what they just saw. I mean, that's kind of what I do like every day, right? Like I analyze it. So that was my days. At night, I would be training because I didn't have the funds to hire like I nor did I take any funds from anyone even to this day in terms of financing or investment or funding. So I was training. And again, there was no Zoom back then. So, there were different ways to figure it out, how to do all that. But, you had to train people and then check quality, right? Because you didn't know if the quality was good enough. So it was really grassroots. So I was burning the candle at both ends. So that first year was all about that. And fortunately, I had really good customers who I considered partners. Actually, several of them are still customers even to this day. And we grew together. And I think the biggest factor in that first year was they really trusted me. They trusted that I was going to get this done. They believed in me that I was going to create this for them and deliver for them.
So I love this story because you're doing all the right things, but I don't even know. I'll ask you, did you know back then you were doing the right things, or was it just like, I'm in survival and growth mode and I'm just going to do what I think I need to do 24 hours a day?
Yes, I think it's my instinct. I just knew what the right thing to do was from a business perspective
Yeah.
all around. I knew that I had to sell. I also knew I had to make money. So, I wasn't obviously the name of the game was to save money for our clients, but I needed to not be the lowest. There were competitors that were really low price, but I didn't go down to that level. I didn't compete necessarily on price there, but so that was good. But I wouldn't call it survival mode. Even though now talking about it, it seems like it. I was really in creating something, like creating something, a unique model. There were a few companies like mine and I was on a mission to, as I am still today, to create something very unique. And I just followed my instincts, my business acumen of what I needed to do to keep growing this thing.
So you took one step a day, every
Yeah,
day, foot in front of the other, kept your nose pointed in the direction you wanted to go. You're still doing the same thing today. And
right.
it grew from 5 employees to 5,500 employees
Yeah.
over a 25-year period.
Yes.
So, folks, I want to step back to 2001 because I started in the telecommunications business in 2001, and I had a cell phone, and the brand name, the company who had it was called Sprint.
Yeah.
And right?
Yeah.
Now, some of you don't even know what I'm talking about because you've never heard the word Sprint, but they were one of the three big carriers. It was AT&T,
Yeah.
MCI, and
Mhm.
Sprint. Those were
Yeah.
your three big ones back then. And so back then, you barely had data on the phone. Like this is like when you were talking about this, and remote work back then wasn't like as acceptable as it is today. I suspect. I wanted to ask you that question. Was it like when you called people, were they like open, like, oh, every cold call went, oh, that's amazing, Pranav, geez, I'm so glad you called me? Or was it like, no, kid, I'm not interested in what you have, click? Or was it a combination of both?
I think back then, I kid you not, I could probably make a sale every day. So I was making roughly 20 to 30 calls a day. I still remember this. That was my target. And I had the belief, and I was also really good at making one sale a day. So I think back at back then, because no one had really come across this, it was like the Wild West and it was a gold rush. And I
Yep.
really, at that time, had a really good way of connecting with people, which I still do. And and so it was a great time, even during the dark period, of 9/11 and 2001. Look, there have been plenty of tough times, the financial crisis, real estate crisis, COVID, all that. But when there are tough times, businesses need help too, and that's where we come in. So during good times, bad times, we're always there. So it actually proved to be a very good time for us, for me, to start at that time.
So, folks, I want you to catch the numbers here because you all know I'm a mathematics person. He was making 150, 200 calls a week. A week. How many of you are making 150 to 200 personal outbound tries or outreaches a week? Right. You know who you are and you know who you're not, right? So we're not, so let's, now you're on the other side of the coin, right? It's like, okay, you're here, 5,500 employees. I'm sure you've learned some good lessons, some things that are, not. I'd love to know your feedback to people because we have companies who listen from all different, some are starting up, some are solo entrepreneurs, some are established, $50 million companies, some are major corporations, right? So if they're going to start a new initiative, my belief is you focus on sales until you get that new initiative to wherever it goes that you want it to go. And then you start making adjustments. I heard you kind of did that, but I want to, now that you're on the other side of the coin, have all this experience starting a new initiative. What are the first two or three things that they, or the only things that they should be focused on?
So as a founder and CEO, and I believe this to be true of any company size, right? The founder CEO should be having their ear to the ground. And what I mean by that is as close to the customer as possible. That's when you really can assess like what those potential needs are. And that's what I do. I mean, I'm constantly understanding what customer needs are. And I think my superpower is understanding, what's next and what a customer and large groups of customers will want next. And so that's the number one thing, first of all, because there's many uh, CEOs, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
business owners who are in their ivory tower
Right.
and are being told by executives, hey, we should do this, we should do that. But I think and if you're the decision maker, you really need to see it for yourself. You need to hear it and you need to really relate to it. So that's the first thing. Secondly, it's really understanding like what the way I think about things is how can you scale it? So the reason why we were able to go from 5 to 5,500 is I'm always thinking about the scalability of it. I'm not thinking about the manual process. I'm thinking about how do we replicate this so that it can be repeatable. And I actually do a lot of talks about that, about repeatable process, whether it's in sales, in operations, in whatever area. And that's how we operate is to create process that's repeatable, scalable. So that's the other thing. It's a super key important part of it. And then the final thing is really how are you going to get your message out there? Like you may have the greatest product and service, but how are you going to let people know about it? And the way I think about that is what I call opposite thinking, which I feel like I'm very good at. And opposite thinking is thinking about doing the opposite of what everyone else is. So most people, again, I'm generalizing, but when you go on Instagram and Facebook and you see the trends of how people are advertising and posting, a lot of it's the same. So it's usually like, one person following the pack, and then that pack grows bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yep.
You need to go against the grain, and that's what we do. We go against the grain. We do the opposite, and that's what stands out for us. And so those are sort of you asked for three things, so those are the three things that I focus on. So
So I mean, it all makes sense, right? I mean, even
mhm.
at the level you are now in the business, you're still in listening to what the customer wants because The customer is going to tell you what they want, and therefore you know where to go because the customers, if they want it and they're willing to buy it,
Yeah.
that's where you go, right? I mean, it's the scalability replication. I'm so, by the way, I'm so grateful you're bringing up this messaging thing. In front, I want to step back to the scalability part. When you have a repeatable process that is duplicatable and repeatable, you know, a lot of times, especially in sales, people are trying to like, I want to hire the superstars. I want to get the best, you know, top producers out there. And I'm like, are you set up to be that type of company?
Yeah. Right.
And aren't we better off just creating a reliable, repeatable, predictable revenue growth machine where you can have average salespeople
Yes.
excel in that process versus having, you know, let's say a sales team of, you know, 100 and you got, you know, six people who are just like killing it and the rest of them are all not, right? I find it a much better model. Do you find in the repeatable process, the replicatable process, that you can just bring people in? You don't have to like, of course you want to look for the best talent if you can get them, but you don't need them. It's not a need in the business in order to make that scalable process work.
Uh, exactly. That's what I've done all my career, and in growing this company, um, there are two approaches. You could hire the superstars, right? But that's not going to guarantee anything.
No.
And I believe it's also short term. Those superstars are here today, gone tomorrow. If you look at sort of the employee tenure in my company, I mean, I have employees in the company that have been with me since day one. Our average tenure is probably over 10 years. And so I hire, especially my core team, you know, they're learners, they're passionate like me. They're level five, like, you know, employees, like they're awesome. So for key roles, I mean, it's obviously important to match the skill sets to the role. But then we bring in trainers, we bring in outside, you know, people to help supplement them and help them, you know, acquire the skill sets to be, you know, to really excel in further ways. So that's exactly how I do it.
So let's thank you. And so let's go to the messaging, because I'm forever saying to people, look, if you know your ideal right fit buyer, the messaging is a lot easier. And most companies, what I find is they're scattered amongst that. They really don't know that ideal right fit buyer. And Harvard and Wharton School of Business put out a study, and I was grateful to see it because it stated 97% of people selling today don't know in part or in full their ideal right fit buyer. But you started out having to figure out what that hook was that your clients wanted.
Right.
And so did that kind of lead you, like, because you know you're doing game reviews every day, training every day, how to update yourself, the quality of what's going on, all of these reviews. Did that reveal who your ideal right fit buyer was through that process, or did you find it in some other way?
So my mindset was, again, that I wanted to create a company that would be the Amazon of business services, that we could develop services for any department within any company. Um, and so my goal was to be able to target any of the 30 million US businesses, you know, and if you look at the SBA statistics, there's about 30 or 32 million businesses in the US. I wanted to set up my company that way. There's a saying, be the best in the world at one thing, right? Like just choose one thing and be the best at the world at it. Well, for me, you know, I started the company with graphic design services. That was the first services we offered. But that's not what I wanted to be the best in the world at. I wanted to be the best in the world at HR. So we could recruit talent, um, hire them, train them, and retain them in any vertical, in any industry, in any skill set. And that's what we've been able to accomplish. We hire engineers, we hire accountants, we hire software developers, graphic designers, and the service that we offer to any of our clients is still top notch, like what they would expect if they went to a specialty type of organization. So that's my mindset, was not really just to focus on one thing, but be able to do it across the board. So my ideal customer profile is every company in the United
United
States.
States, because you're
Yeah,
supplying everything, and that bring
yeah,
and thank you for having this conversation,
yeah,
because so many people, like, they're out there teaching niche, niche, niche. You got a niche, niche, and I'm like, you really don't have to, as long as you have the buyers.
correct.
Um, so makes total sense. And I keep hearing the same theme throughout. You had a mission.
Yeah.
You had a mission. It's just like, um, I was watching last night Eddie Murphy. You know, he was a young Eddie Murphy, and now he's an older Eddie Murphy, and they went through his life and his mindset and the whole process. And he always had the mission that he wanted to be famous and to make people laugh. Right?
Yeah.
That was the gig for Eddie, and he still has that mission to today. And I'm hearing you clearly still have that mission today. How important is it? And I think we all can say this is self-evident, but how important is it to really have a concrete mission? And how should somebody think about the mission?
So I I want to give this in a story. Like the way I think about it is um in a parallel. Like I want to talk about, like, for example, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs had a mission his whole life about creating products that would change the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was his journey. Like he wasn't going to go become a graphic designer and change his career. Like he wasn't it was a life mission, which is exactly how I think of my role, in what I do. I don't think of it as me um, building this company and then tomorrow selling it. My mission is to impact uh, businesses around the world in a very, very positive way. But it's more than that. It's the employees that work at those companies. It's making providing value in many ways, not only to the customers of ours, but to our employees. I mean, over the years, we have probably hired 50 to 100,000 people, and when I started in India alone, I remember landing there. There wasn't a single car in the city that I was there, in that city, not a single car. Now, I mean, there's cars, there's freeways. I mean, my employees are buying houses. They couldn't even do all of that. So I know we've had a considerable impact. And That's my mission, is to have impact and as big as possible. And I see it every day, every year. And that's the journey, but doing it through very innovative ways, right? And that's the challenge part, is how to keep relevant and uh how to make this company, really stand out in the crowd.
Do you feel that too many entrepreneurs focus on money more as the metric than the impact in their life's mission? And that's partly why they aren't hitting their goals that they want. Like, I find a lot of people, like, we look and it's like, it's all about the money.
Hmm.
But there's not a lot of substance beyond that one goal. Is that a mistake in business, or not a mistake in business?
Um, well, that comes down to competitive advantage. So impact will be a result or an outcome of one thing, and that's your competitive advantage. And that's actually the area which I focus on. And when I talked about my superpower, it's really understanding business models and competitive advantage. Competitive advantage could be a feature, something you're offering that really resonates with your client. That's something that's, when you speak of it, within 10 seconds, the client is going to go, wow, I need to have that. And that's what, the most successful companies have, like when ChatGPT was released to the world. I mean, the fastest growing startup ever.
Yeah.
Um, it's going to have the biggest IPO. I mean, that's the rumors you hear. And because the competitive advantage was significant. And that's what I think business owners really need to focus on, because the money will come, right? Once you have that. And in my seminars to business owners, you know what I hear? I ask them, what do you think your competitive advantage is? They say, well, we have the best customer service. Is that really? It can be in some instances, you can be known for the best customer service, but I mean, it's a very, very subjective thing too. You really have to have a very, very understandable, very clear competitive advantage to succeed.
That makes, I call that kind of the duh factor in a lot of ways, because my next question back to them would be, isn't that what you're supposed to do anyways?
Correct. Yeah, that's what the customer expects, right? That's your lowest standard. Like that's what you have
Yeah,
to do,
exactly.
right? That's right.
That's
You're right about that. Yeah.
um you said a key word, business model. You
Yeah.
said the other one is a business model that you focus on.
Yeah.
Take us through your thought process, if you will, on how do you focus on a business model and what you look for.
Well, so one great book, by the way, is Blue Ocean Strategy. So I look at the different pillars, right? Like, um, what what is going to be different? Like I don't focus on being a me too. Like there's a lot of remote staffing companies out there, tens of thousands. I don't even know, maybe 100,000, who knows? But what separates us to be able to win deals every day? What separates us? So I'm not looking to copy others and do what others are doing. We look at what separates us, and part of it is, for example, that we offer managed services and all these, services in every department to become a one-stop shop. I think, it's very important to look at all these types of factors. Pricing. There's something called the rule of three, like we that I literally developed, which was if you can offer three things to a client, they're going to be your client forever. And so for us, those three things are obviously the service. That's number one. It's the management oversight, because our clients say, well, then now we don't have to have HR because you guys are handling all that. And then the third thing is we offer software. So software, because we develop so much for ourselves, we're almost like a ecosystem of many companies. We turn around and offer that to our clients really at no charge. So whether it's CRM or HR platforms, they get the benefit of what we've developed for ourselves. And once we do that, um, we create this stickiness, and it's a rule of three where they're like, and I've had clients say this, as like, it's the switching cost is just too high. We can't switch from
Yep.
you.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the telecommunications world, we used to be able to get local long distance data.
Yep.
And then if we had local and long distance, we'd have a higher churn rate. If we had data in local and long distance, the churn rate would be less. But if we
Right.
got their email or data services, it was well over 80% retention of the
Yeah.
client base for decades, right? They just, like you said, they're so far in, they don't want to
Yeah.
extract out.
Yeah. Too hard.
Yep. And I think that rule of three is a critical thing, folks. If you took nothing else out of this podcast, by the way, I hope you're writing as feverishly as I am. I have 2 pages of notes here already. Um, take that rule of three, because it's way costly to go get a new client compared to getting a referral from an existing client or retaining the new client and selling the new client into something else. And for those of you who are, interested in higher cash flow, there's a strategy right there to start bumping your cash flow for yourself. Um, it, I could talk to you all afternoon, and I know, I appreciate you being here. Just two more questions, if you
Sure.
don't
Of
mind.
course.
You've had client retention for 25 years. You've had employee retention for a heck of a long time. Um, the cost of turnover is costly
Yeah.
to people. Is there a secret that you may know, or is there something that you might be able to share on how do you retain people? Obviously, the rule of three in the business of retaining clients might be part of it, but is there another like essence about what people should be thinking about on how to retain clients long term, or employees long term?
Let me start with employees.
Mm-hmm.
Creating strong corporate culture is super important.
Mm-hmm.
And our corporate culture has been created organically. We have multiple locations around the world. I don't have family members anywhere around the world helping me. We have professional management and employees working. in those locations. We have employee engagement. We have our own magazine that we issue every quarter that goes out. I do a town hall every quarter with every employee. In fact, next month I'll be traveling to 25,000 miles around the globe to visit, all the locations and do in-person town halls. Um, we want all of our employees to feel part of this movement and community, and to feel part that their future is in good hands because of the direction we're headed. I mean, that's what every employee wants to know, is that hey, we're with a company that is really focused on growth and
Mhm.
at the same time taking care of its employees. So I think they hear that from me because I'm very transparent with employees. Any completely open door, any employee can contact me, and they do. And we help resolve issues, and I sort of get involved where I need to, and I think that relationship is very strong. So from an employee standpoint, I think all of those things matter. From a customer standpoint, it's just really keep delivering a competitive service. So one of the things that I do, my job in the company, like where I've really positioned myself, is the visionary and disruptor. So while I am the founder and CEO, the job title that I sort of use a lot is called Chief Disruption Officer, because that's what I personally identify with, like as that's really in my DNA. And I love to challenge us, like internally, like process, I mean, every day. And my team loves to work with me from the perspective that I'm always thinking opposite thinking, and bringing something new to the table to say, hey, we can do this in a different way, do it better, using this or that or AI or whatever it may be. Um, and customers appreciate that, because we're just not like sitting on our laurels here and just like collecting money. We're really trying to improve things for our customers every single day.
I'm hearing a recurring theme through both sides, whether it's the employees or the customers. I'll give you that in a sec if you don't
Sure.
mind. A long time ago, a an MIT group here in the Boston area, they were an investor group, and I was talking with them, and they said to me, "Read this book called The Innovator's Dilemma," and it was all about how to create disruptive technology.
Yep.
And so I hear you're the
Yeah.
chief disruptor in
Right.
that process, always constantly challenging the status quo, given the contrarian point of view to keep
Right.
things going. So I wrote down this word, these two words. The reason I think this works, and I'd like your, you know, contrarian point of view or agreement on this, is you are an active CEO.
Yeah.
And most CEOs in companies aren't that active by far.
Right.
And so, those of you who are now on the side of the road crying because you've got some information here, write that one down.
Oh,
You've got to be an active CEO. Anytime I've ever been, leading large sales teams or whatever, I was always the active leader in the group. I actively sold so people couldn't come to me and say, well, this whiny thing or this thing's, and because I knew what they knew, and that's what I'm hearing. You have your your ear down to the ground, listening to everybody speak. You're actively involved in the community. You're out there showing people you're a real human being and that you care about them. And folks, if you just emulated that in your business alone, you're going to bring better quality clients and better quality people to you, because I can tell you on the sales side with top producers, the majority of those people leave not because it's too disruptive or too hard or too whatever. It's that there was misrepresentation of what the company was about, and they figured it out once they got in there and they left. So I'm so grateful that you brought that forth, because I think, if nothing else, that's a wake up, guys and gals, about what you're doing here. Last question I have. You started with 5, you're at 5,500. I have to imagine your mind shifting went on throughout the years? You had to kind of grow internally as not only a business professional, but as a person in general to kind of take on all the new challenges and all the new opportunities that come along. Is that an accurate statement? And if so, what would you recommend to people who want to build a substantial business, whether it's a smaller but substantial business or a larger business like you have built, on and around the mind growth that needs or must happen?
I love that question. Yes, I have constantly developed myself, and that's through learning. You see behind me some certificates
Yes.
and diplomas. One of them's from Harvard Business School. The other one's from Toronto. I have a third one from another master's program. And I constantly learn. I mean, the last year I've been enrolled in multiple AI development programs. So as an active, I love that term, by the way, active CEO, constant learning, constant, because, I can apply that learning in now that I understand business pretty substantially in many industries. Whatever I learn, I can apply and sort of bring to my company. And I think that's the number one thing I do is really just try to learn and read as much as possible and figure out how relevant it is to, to apply to the business. And that's what I call working on the business, not in the business. Like I have a couple of tips for you, Doug. Like I have a VA or a virtual assistant in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look at a single email of mine until she looks at it. I wake up in the morning, I have zero emails in my inbox. I don't take any brain space away from creating, like from visualizing, visionary work. I let her handle like calendar, email, and then I focus on, learning. I focus on working on the business, not in the business, on firefighting or anything like that. And I think if your listeners and viewers and whoever is on this, take away something, it's learn as much as you can, because it's going to totally help you in so many different ways.
Yeah, and I will champion that. One of the things. So at one time, I was the independent president of sales and training for Chet Holmes, who was constantly. He wrote a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine, and his big thing was work on the business, not in the business, right?
Right.
And I think in the beginning, when you start a company, you're always going to be working in the business and then spend some time working on the business. But I believe, as you're eloquently saying it, is as you shift and get growth and can put systems and processes and people, a
Yep.
mistake is to stay continuously working in that business. You've now got to work on the business for the trajectory of growth that you want to take it.
Right.
And so many people get caught in that trap, and that's where they're stuck in their business. They're like, oh, just this isn't moving. This is, yeah, well, you're doing $37 million and you're still in on every little component of the company, which is not bad, but you have people who can do these things better. You have systems and processes you can put in there to do it better and more efficiently. And I love the fact you don't touch your email until, your assistant says, hey, this is a good one. You need to pay attention to this and respond, because it allows you to focus on building that company. And that's, folks, again, take notes. If you haven't taken notes, this is a masterclass on how to build and scale a company from start to up, wherever you want to take it. Pranav, I could talk to you all day, all night long, I'm sure. How do people, like, if they want to know more about something special you want to alert them to, or
Yeah.
get a hold of your company somehow, how do they do that?
One, happy to connect with anyone through LinkedIn, right? So you can definitely connect with me, send me a message. Secondly, come to our website. We have connect with us form right there. Fill it out, and our business development team will schedule a call, and you can learn a lot about how we can help you scale your business. Third, if you're in Southern California, we have a lot of events. We do them all across the country, but we have a lot right now in Southern California. And sign up for one of them and get qualified and we'd love to meet you. And so I do attend a lot of those events myself as well. So there's multiple ways to connect through to us and love to hear from you.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. And folks, it's not a bad place, especially in the wintertime, to be in Southern California if you live in one of the colder states and get a business right off in the process. Uh, so I highly recommend that. Pranav, thank you so much for being on the CEO Sales Strategies podcast. I'd love to have you back again down the line if you're open to it.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Doug.
All right, I hope you have pages and pages and pages of notes. There were so many nuggets of wisdom that were put forth here, focusing on what your customer needs are on a consistent basis, like being an active CEO in your company, not only for your clients, but also for the internal people that work with you, for you, creating scalability, replication, a repeatable process throughout, you know, um, your messaging, dialing in your messaging, so important to dial in your messaging. Why? It's your messaging. It's what comes out of your mouth. It's what comes out of your marketing department. It's that thing that initially captures attention, supposed to create interest, desire, and get them to take an action, right? And that action is for the second step of that stage, right? So you want to be able to do this on and around how to create the mind growth of your every single day in your business, of working on the business as much as possible. And as I say, as much as possible, just as Pranav said, it's in the beginning, you're working more in the business, but you still want to put some time, even if it's 90, 10, 80, 20, to really focus on working on the business and the education and the growth and the learning skills he was conveying. Super, super important. So many people don't do that. So this was a great episode. I believe, if you believe, please give it a 5-star review. I know it takes a few moments to do it. I'm forever grateful to do that. If you're someone who wants to increase the EBITDA in your company, in other words, increase the cash flow in your company, have more cash in and do it on an internal basis. In other words, increasing your revenue predictably and lowering those expenses in your company to create a EBITDA multiple. Think about it this way. If you're a $20 million company or you're a $5 million company and your EBITDA is say 20%, right? You've either got at 5 million, you've got 4 million in EBITDA. At 5 million, I'm sorry, 20 million, you got 4 million in EBITDA. And at 5 million, you got 1 million in EBITDA. If you can get that EBITDA from 20 to 25, now you've got 5 million versus 4 million, right? Coming up on the top end. And you go from 1 million to the next level on that. What does that matter? Firstly, you have cash, more cash at hand to be able to work with. So what does that mean? You can hire resources, you can build processes, you can build systems, you can put technology in. You can do a lot of things, maybe even pay yourself a little bit more, right? But when you go to sell your company, if you had a 4 million EBITDA and you got 5x, it's worth 20 million. If you have a 20, that extra 5% gives you that 5 million and you sell it at, 5x, now you're at 25 million. So you gained another $5 million in the process. All right. So just no matter what size company you are, that's how the metrics work. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown. If you want to grow your company, you want to improve that EBITDA, reach out to me at doug@ceosalesstrategies.com. And until next time, I want you to go out and sell something, sell a lot of it, hold margins, value perception, right? That's your messaging, your conversation. The higher that perception is to the buyer, the more they're willing to spend in most cases. And when you're discounting down. That creates a lot more work for you because you got to sell a lot more to make the same kind of profitability on that process, or at least to get the same kind of money through the door for you. All right. Make someone happy. Play win, win, win. They win, you win, someone else wins. Until next time, this is Doug Brown with the CEO Sales Strategies Podcast. To your success.